The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had 2 bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. He was very much admired indeed. "Why can't you be like the Happy Prince?" asked the sensible mother of her little boy who was crying for the moon. "The Happy Prince never dreams of crying for anything." "I'm glad there's someone in the world who's quite happy," muttered a disappointed man as he gazed at the wonderful statue. "He looks just like an angel," said the charity children as they came out of the cathedral in their bright scarlet cloaks and clean white pinafores. "How do you know?" asked the mathematical teacher. "You have never seen one." "Oh, but we have. In our dreams," answered the children. And the mathematical master frowned and looked very severe, for he did not approve of children dreaming. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind because he was in love with the most beautiful reed. He had met her early in the spring as he was flying down the river after a big yellow moth, and had been so attracted by her slender waist that he'd stopped to talk to her. "Shall I love you?" said the swallow, who liked to come to the point at once, and the reed made him a low bow. So he flew round and round her, touching the water with his wings, making silver ripples, and his courtship lasted all through the summer. "It's a ridiculous attachment," twittered the other swallows. "She has no money, and far too many relations." And indeed the river was quite full of reeds. Then when the autumn came, they all flew away, and after they had gone, he felt lonely, and began to tire of his lady love. "She has no conversation," he said, "and I'm afraid she is a coquette, for she is always flirting with the wind." And certainly, whenever the wind blew, the reed made the most graceful curtsies. "Besides, I love traveling, and consequently my wife should love traveling too. Will you come away with me?" he finally said to her. But the reed shook her head no, for she was attached to her river home. "You have been trifling with me," he cried. "I'm off to the pyramids. Goodbye." And he flew away, and all day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at a huge city. "Now, where shall I put up?" he said. "I hope the town has accommodations." Then he saw the statue on the tall column. "Ah, this is a fine location," he cried, "with plenty of fresh air." So he alighted just between the feet of the Happy Prince. "I have a golden bedroom," he said softly to himself as he looked round. Then he prepared to go to sleep, and just as he was pushing his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. "How curious," he cried. "There's not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are clear and bright, and yet it's raining." Then another drop fell. "Oh, what's the use of a statue if it cannot keep off the rain? I must go look for a good chimney top." And he prepared to fly away, but just before he had time to open his wings, another drop fell, and he looked up and saw... Oh, what did he see? The eyes of the Happy Prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks, and his face was so sad and so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. "Why are you weeping?" he asked. "You've quite drenched me. Who are you?" "I am called the Happy Prince," the statue replied. "When I was alive and had a human heart, I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace of Sans Souci, where sorrow is never allowed to enter, and around the garden ran a very lofty wall. But I never asked what lay beyond it. Everything around me was so beautiful. My courtiers called me the Happy Prince, and happy indeed I was, if pleasure be happiness. So I lived, and so I died. But now that I am dead, and they have set me up here so high, where I can see all the ugliness and all the misery of my city, even though my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep." "What? "Is he not solid gold?" said the swallow to himself, but he was far too polite to make any personal remarks out loud. "Far away," continued the statue in a low musical voice, "far away there is in a little street a poor, poor house. One of the windows is open, and through it I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse red hands, all pricked by the needle, for she is a seamstress. She is embroidering passion flowers on a satin gown for the queen's maid of honor to wear at the next court ball. In a bed in the corner of the room, a little boy is lying very ill. He has a fever, and he's asking for oranges. But his mother has nothing to give him but river water, and he is crying. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not take her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened to this pedestal, and I cannot move." "But I am waited for in Egypt," said the swallow. "My friends are now flying up and down the Nile, and soon they will go to sleep in the tomb of the great king. The king himself is there, in his painted coffin, wrapped in yellow linen, and embalmed with spices, and round his neck is a chain of pale green jade, and... Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not stay with me for one night and be my messenger? The boy is so thirsty, and his mother so sad." "I don't think I like little boys," answered the swallow. "Last summer, when I was staying on the river, 2 rude boys, the miller's sons, were always throwing stones at me. They never hit me, of course, but still, it was a mark of disrespect." But the happy prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry for him. "Well, it is very cold here," he said, "but I will stay with you for one night and be your messenger." "Oh, thank you, little swallow," said the prince. So the swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in his beak. He flew over the roofs of the town, and as he passed by the palace he heard the sound of dancing, and a beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover. "How wonderful the stars are," he said to her, "and how wonderful is the power of love." "I hope my dress will be ready in time for the ball," she answered. "I've ordered passion flowers to be embroidered on it. Oh, but the seamstresses are so lazy." Then he passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging to the masts of the ships, and he passed over the ghetto, and at last he came to the poor house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, and the mother had fallen asleep, she was so tired. In he hopped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. Then he flew gently around the bed, fanning the boy's hot face with his wings. "How cool it is now," said the boy, and he sank into a healthy sleep. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. "How curious," the swallow remarked, "but I feel quite warm now, although it's so cold." "Oh, that is because you have done a good deed," said the prince. And the little swallow began to think, and then he fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. And when day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath. "What a remarkable phenomenon," said the professor of ornithology as he was passing over the bridge. "A swallow in winter." And he wrote a long article about it for the local newspaper. "Tonight I fly to Egypt," sang the swallow. He was in such high spirits at the prospect. When the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince to say goodbye. "Have you any commissions for Egypt?" he cried. "I'm just starting off." "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not stay with me just one night longer?" "But I am waited for in Egypt," answered the swallow. "Tomorrow my friends fly up to the second cataract, and at noon the yellow lions come down to the water's edge to drink, with eyes like green beryls, and their roar is louder than the roar of the cataract." "Swallow, swallow, little swallow," said the prince. "Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. He is leaning over a desk, covered with papers. In a tumbler by his side there is a bunch of withered violets. He is too cold to write any more. There is no fire left in the grate, and hunger has made him faint. So the swallow, who really had a good heart, answered, "Very well, Prince, I will wait with you one night longer. Shall I take him another ruby?" "Alas, I have no other ruby," said the prince. "My eyes are all that I have left now, and they are made of rare sapphires brought out of India 1,000 years ago. Pluck one of them out and take it to him." "Dear Prince," said the swallow, "I cannot do that." And he began to weep. "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, do as I command you." So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and flew away with it to the garret. It was easy enough to get in, as there was a hole in the roof. The young man had his head buried in his hands. He did not hear the flutter of the little bird's wings, but when he looked up, he saw the beautiful sapphire lying on the withered violets. "Ah, now I can finish my writing," he cried happily. So early the next day, the swallow flew down to the harbor and sat on the mast of a large vessel. "Tonight I am flying to Egypt," he sang. And when the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince to bid him goodbye. "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not stay with me just one night longer?" "But it is winter," answered the swallow. "The chill snow is coming, and in Egypt the sun shines warm on the green palm trees. And my companions are building a nest in the temple, and the pink and white doves are watching them and cooing to each other. Dear Prince, I must leave you, but I will never forget you. And next spring I will bring you back a red rose, redder than the great ruby you have given away." "Just there in the square below," said the prince, "stands a little girl crying. She has let her matches fall into the gutter, and they are all spoiled, and her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her." "Oh, I will gladly stay with you one night longer, but I cannot pluck out your other eye." "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, do as I command you." So he plucked out the prince's other eye and darted down with it and slipped the jewel into the palm of the little girl's hand. "Oh, what a lovely bit of glass!" cried the little girl, and ran home laughing merrily. Then the swallow came back to the prince. "You are blind now," he said. "I will stay with you always." "Oh, no, no, little swallow," said the prince. "You must go away into the sun." "I will stay with you always," said the swallow. And he slept at the prince's feet. And all next day he sat on the prince's shoulders and told him stories of what he had seen in strange lands. Of the Sphinx, who was as old as the world itself. Of the king of the mountains of the moon, who is as black as ebony and worships a large, clear crystal. Of the great green snake that sleeps in a palm tree. Of the pygmies, who sail over a big lake on large, flat leaves, and are always at war with the butterflies. "Dear little swallow," said the prince, "you tell me of most marvelous things, but more marvelous than anything is the suffering of men and of women. There is no mystery so great as misery. Fly over my city, little swallow, and tell me what you see there." So the little swallow flew over the great city, and he saw the rich making merry in their beautiful homes, while the beggars were sitting at the gates. He flew into dark lanes, and saw the white faces of hungry children looking listlessly out at the black streets. Under the archway of a bridge 2 children were trying to keep warm, and the watchman was driving them out into the cold. And he flew back and told the prince what he had seen. "Oh, I am covered with fine gold leaves," said the prince. "You must take the gold leaf by leaf and give it to the poor." So leaf after leaf of the fine gold the swallow picked off till the prince looked dull and gray. Leaf after leaf of fine gold he brought to the poor, and watched the children's faces grow rosier, and saw them laugh and play games as they cried happily, "We have bread! We have bread!" Then the snow came, And after the snow came the frost, and the streets looked as if they were made of silver. They were so bright and glistening. Long icicles like crystal fingers hung down from the eaves of the houses. Everybody went about in furs, and the little boys wore scarlet caps and skated on the ice. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he could not leave the prince. He picked up crumbs outside the baker's door and tried to keep warm by flapping his little wings, but at last he knew that he was going to die, and he had just enough strength to fly up to the prince's shoulder once more. "Goodbye, dear prince," he murmured. "Oh, I am glad you are going now to Egypt at last," said the prince. "You have stayed too long here." "It is not to Egypt, but to the house of death that I am going, and death is the brother of sleep." And he fell down as if asleep at the feet of the prince. And at that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue. The leaden heart had snapped right in two. It was certainly a dreadfully hard frost. Early the next morning, the mayor was walking in the square. As he glanced up at the statue, he said, "Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks. The ruby has fallen out of his sword. His eyes are gone, and he is no longer golden. And here is actually a dead bird at his feet. We must issue a proclamation that birds are not allowed to die here. Oh, as the statue is no longer beautiful, we shall have to remove him." So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince. Then they melted it in a furnace. "What a strange thing," said the overseer of the workmen at the foundry. "This broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace. We must throw it away." So they threw it out on a dust heap, where the little dead swallow was also lying. And it was then that God said to one of his angels, "Bring me the two most precious things in the city." And the angel brought him the leaden heart and the little dead bird. "You have chosen well," God said. "The little bird shall sing forevermore in my city of gold for the shining, happy